is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood Podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jack Ridenour and Sean Meyers.
And we welcome you into our second edition of the Westmoreland on the Hardwood Podcast. Sean Meyers, Jack Ridenour here of the Westmoreland Sports Network. Jack, I think we had a pretty good first show, but without further ado, let's jump right into our second installment of this weekly basketball podcast. We got a lot to get to, including our plays of the week. We're going to focus on the Greensburg Salem girls team. They are our team of the week. We'll have another trivia question and a look ahead at the week to come. It's going to be a very busy week here on WSN. But let's begin with our starting five, the biggest takeaways from this past week. And it was a little bit different because it was the holiday week, which meant a lot of holiday tournaments, so which actually extend back about 10 days or so. One thing that I know you saw firsthand, the Norwin girls rebounding after their first loss. They really struggled against a very good McKeesport team, but they bounced back in a big way just a couple days later.
And a much-needed bounce-back win. I mean, you go back to the loss against McKeesport. They had 26 total turnovers, 7 of them in the third quarter, and they were outscored 16-0 in that third quarter. And I got to say, the one thing that jumps out from that victory against North Catholic for Norwin, great ball movement. That was a big difference down the stretch, and the shots were falling early as well, especially for Bailey Snowberger.
Yeah, and for North Catholic, that's another team that has won a WPIAL title. That's the third different reigning WPIAL champs they defeated. Yeah, North Catholic wasn't at 100%, but still dominant showing from Norwin, and they looked the part once again. Good to see that loss did not linger. Well, speaking about losses and speaking about Norwin, how about the boys team? After winning their first 6 games of the season, they're now on a 2-game skid. Nothing really to be major concerned about. They lost at Beaver area and against Peters Township as part of the Peters USC holiday tournament. So obviously Peters Township is a very good team. Don't know as much about Beaver. You figured they weren't going to go undefeated through the whole season. Again, you'd rather lose those type of games and have a chance to work on it as opposed to losing this upcoming week when it counts in section play. But I really do start to think this could be not just a playoff team, maybe a team that makes a run. The big key is how they respond to consecutive setbacks.
No question. And it really starts this week with section play firing up, and you have to start off on the right foot. I know that a really big sign, I think, especially in the loss for Norwin, was Adam Belinsky had 26 points against Beaver. So he's getting back into the rhythm of things. I know that he's been hampered by injuries the last few seasons. So having him at 100% heading right into section play, I think that's a great sign for this Norwin boys basketball team.
Yeah, and we're going to see a little bit more from Mr. Belinsky later in our show. You have to stick around for plays of the week. He did something absolutely spectacular in that one. Well, you and I saw Greensburg Central Catholic win a thriller about 10 days ago at this point. And I remember we talked about on this very podcast last week, we talked about it on that broadcast after their win against Sarah Catholic. They were playing a little bit of a crosstown rivalry against Hempfield area. They found a way to win that game, a 2A team defeating a 6A team. And so to me, that kind of solidifies their spot as maybe a little bit better than what they looked earlier in the season. Seems like GCC's rounding into form. I know they still have the same questions that linger. They're going to see zone defenses. They're going to have to prove that they can either shoot the ball from distance or find other ways to be efficient on offense. But beating a pretty solid, albeit an inexperienced 6A team could go a long way.
No question. And also holding them to under 50 points as well. That's got to be a great sign for this GCC defense. So carrying that into obviously the Christmas season, then into section play, that's something that, you look back at this entire season for this team and you say, hey, you know what? This is the type of team that we can be. We can beat up on a 6A team. We can carry that confidence into section play.
It was a 3-point win for GCC, 51-48. From the other perspective, Harrison Sowers has been really good this year. He was really the only proven commodity for the Spartans, but man, it feels like they're going to have to grow up pretty quickly to compete in the highest classification going forward.
Well, they really did a nice job at bouncing back after that loss. They picked up 2 wins in the Greensburg Salem tournament. They took down a struggling Connellsville team 56-17, and then they beat up on Greensburg Salem 59-43. So they were able to kind of, answer that question mark really of, okay, I look at that loss against a 2A team as, where are we right now? Right? Where in the season are we at right now? Where do we have to kind of go from here if we want to be a competitive 6A team? And I think that they were able to answer that question, picking up 2 recent wins.
The Paul Sapochny Greensburg Salem Holiday Tournament, the legendary coach honored for the Golden Lions. Well, we talked about the reinforcements last week for Bell Vernon area boys, getting those football players back, and it led to them scoring almost 100 points in their first game back, not even fully in basketball shape, guys like Quentin Martin and Braden Locks and Alonzo Wade. But one guy who has been there all season is a newcomer. It's Zion Moore, the transfer from Ringgold, and he is one of the top, if not the top scorer in Westmoreland County right now. He has been a difference maker. It seems like he's taken his game to the next level. And the question is, now that everyone's back, can he be the missing piece that gets them over the hump? Because, man, they have been awfully close the last handful of seasons.
I mean, the numbers that he's putting up right now, Sean, it clearly shows that he could be that missing piece to the puzzle. I mean, he was last year, Ringgold averaged 21 points per game as a freshman, mind you, as a freshman. 21 points per game. He has scored over 20 points in every single game this season, all 8 games. He's coming off a 30-plus point performance against Southmoreland. I mean, when you've got a player that, especially as a sophomore, is doing something like this, and then you add in all the other players, like you mentioned, Quentin Martin, Braden Locks, Lonzo Wade, getting back into the fold and getting back into the mix of things from the football season to the basketball season, this could be a very dangerous Bell Vernon team.
Yeah, and Martin gets so much attention on the gridiron, but he's a terrific basketball player. And now you mix in a guy like Moore. And yeah, we're used to seeing someone come over from Monessen to Bell Vernon and make an impact, but they get more from Ringgold. And it really does seem like he could be. I thought his score numbers were going to drop when the other guys came back, because they say there's only one basketball to go around, but their offense is just taken off. 98 and 87 points. In 2 of the past 3 games for the Leopards. They are on a 3-game winning streak after they got up to just a 1-4 start. Final takeaway from our starting 5 at the shift over on the girls' side. And Southmoreland, this is a team that we knew would naturally take a step back this year no matter what, because they lost so many key contributors. And then when news broke that Olivia Cernuto would be out, we knew that they were going to probably take even further of a step back, but I did not see this coming, Jack. They are struggling unlike any season we've seen in a while. This has been one of the very best Westmoreland County programs, but you certainly can't say that here this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that competes for the section each and every single season, just about. And especially over the last few years, they have been very much a title contending team. But I mean, the glaring thing is just not being able to score the ball right now. I mean, you have 12 points in one of their most recent games, 15 points in one of their most recent games, and that's the total amount of points, right? I mean, that's 32 minutes of basketball, and you're not even breaking 20. They've been able to not even get past 30 in a handful of games. So right now, I think what they need to do as they get into section play, they need to find somebody that can step up in Olivia Cernuto's shoes and try and take over that role of being the leading scorer, the main player, the main playmaker, the go-to player, because right now they don't have any answers.
Yeah, they won their first game of the season narrowly against York, and since then it's been 8 straight losses. And they're not just playing powerhouse bigger programs. Now, they did lose in a holiday tournament against Canada-McMillan, and yes, that's a much bigger school. So you figure, okay, the Big Macs are probably going to overwhelm them, but they've lost to some schools that are like size to them, including a team like Mount Pleasant, Greensburg Salem, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart last time out. So rare to see them struggle, and you certainly hope that they'll find some pieces going forward, even if they're not a contender this year, that can get back to contending status sooner rather than later. That'll do it for our starting 5 takeaways. Let's now shift our focus to plays of the week, and we've got some good ones here this week. And we'll begin with the aforementioned Norwin girls, as after their first loss of the season, the Knights bounced back in a big way. They blew out North Catholic. Kendall Berger was part of that surge, and her shot at the end of the third quarter provided an exclamation point in the win, as called by the one and only Jack Ridenour and his colleague Roger Downs.
Berger left wide open. Off the mark, and Palangio comes darting out of nowhere to keep the offensive rebound. Berger with one, and she puts it in at the buzzer. Kendall Berger. Oh my, Roger. We've got a show here at the Castle.
We sure do.
Oh me, oh my. Palangio saves it, and Berger finishes it off. We'll head into the fourth, 53-30. Norwin leads.
Big shot there, no question, by Kendall Berger, and especially with like we mentioned, a very good 4A team in North Catholic, a great confidence booster for this Norwin girls team as they head into section play.
Absolutely. We continue plays of the week with the Greensburg Central Catholic Centurions boys squad, and they were clinging to a 2-point lead against Sarah Catholic. The Centurions had to get a defensive stop to secure a section win. They did just that, denying the Eagles in a 72-70 victory, with myself and Jack on the commentary.
15 seconds. Now they're stuck a little bit. Petty to the cup. Two off, rebound. Sarah has it. They won't get a shot off, and the Centurions win it in a thriller.
Jack, that was a game that was predicated mostly on offensive success, but it came down to almost 30 seconds, including really about 10 to 15 seconds of really strong defense when Sarah started to get into the offense. You and I went back and forth about the decision to bring it down to the final seconds to go for two, but regardless of what the opponent does, GCC certainly proved it cannot just score. Certainly the Centurions can defend.
Oh, without a question. And I think that is, again, another great kind of sign for this GCC team early in the season, that they can do that in crunch time, down the stretch, come up with big defensive stops.
And we will conclude our plays of the week with the Norwin boys, and you have to see this one because the Knights ultimately came up short against Peters Township, but Adam Walensky provided some poster material with his slam dunk in the second quarter as a senior served up a facial on a spectacular finish to extend his team's lead.
Internet breaking stuff, Mr. Meyers. That is stuff that you do not see very often, especially at the high school level and in-game, mind you.
Yeah, it was, we've heard about his dunking ability. We've seen a little bit of it, but nothing like that, certainly. And so
there's a reason why his nickname is Springs. There's a reason for it.
That's going to put everyone on notice. I'll say this. Everyone who plays against Norwin going forward, they do not want to be a victim of an Adam Walensky dunk, certainly. That will do it for plays of the week, but this is a quick podcast. We're not going to waste any time. We'll jump right into our team of the week, and that is the Greensburg Salem girls. And I will say that I cheated a little bit here, Jack, because in general, we're going to try to look back at the previous week. Now, it's been a little bit longer since our first show, but really, I kind of want to look back even beyond that. This team's 8-1. They were 3-0 over the past week or so. Again, we're going back about 10 days between episodes. But they're also on a 7-game winning streak. So they have been playing red-hot basketball for quite a while now. Greensburg Salem. This was a team that you saw signs of it last year. They were derailed by injury, primarily to Kate Menkins. She's back. She's the leader of this team now, the junior, who had 19 points in their first and only section victory at this point against Derry area. And it seems like they have picked up and taken that next step from a year ago.
No question. And I think the big thing for them this year, it's been the difference, is the defense. I mean, during this 7-game winning streak, they've held opponents to under 30 points in 6 of those games. They're coming off a game where they held Brownsville to only 23 points. They held Southmoreland to only 19 points. I know we just mentioned it's a Southmoreland team that is right now struggling greatly, but a really good sign for this Greensburg Salem team if they can stay healthy. Staying healthy is going to be the name of the game for this team. If they can have a good, clean bill of health the entire month of January and into February, and as we get into playoffs, I mean, this could be a team that could make a lot of noise come postseason time.
Yeah, and they have some players, a lot of players with eligibility remaining. We mentioned Mankin. She's a junior. Ashlyn Price, also a junior. She scored 19 against Brownsville. Again, that by herself almost outscored the entire Falcons team. Reagan Kerr's a sophomore. Now, they do have a couple of seniors. Ashley Smith is one of them who makes contributions. But the other thing that's really incredible about this team's hot start, Jack, go back a year ago. I mentioned they had a good season. They made the playoffs. They lost to South Fayette, the eventual champions. But they lost a lot. They lost Abby Menkins, who's now at Seton Hill, but they had 2 other players who graduated who are now competing in different sports at the college level. I think they lost 5 or 6 total seniors. So I thought maybe it'd be a down year where they had to kind of reload and find their new roles, but they're certainly ahead of schedule in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, they have not skipped a beat. And I think that is what is so impressive, is that they're exceeding expectations this early on, and they've caught everybody's attention in the section. They've already shown, going up against a section opponent in Derry area, that they can not only score a lot of points, scored 56, but also hold section opponents to a low amount, held Derry to only 20. So I think the news is out right now that this Greensburg Salem girls basketball team should not be messed with.
Absolutely. And we mentioned they're on a nice little winning streak. Their one and only loss came on December 3rd, so it's been almost a full month since they have tasted defeat. Although, looking ahead, it's not going to be particularly easy. They return to section play again. They are 1-0 in section, courtesy of that victory over Derry area back on December 15th. 1-0 in Class 4A Section 1, but they will have a game at Valley, and then their big test on the 5th, they will be home against North Catholic. That's a Trojans team you just saw.
Yeah, and then you go a little bit further, and I'm looking at the schedule right now, and they really go through a big road stretch. The 16th of January, they're at Freeport. The 19th, they're at Derry area. The 25th, they're at Laurel Highlands. That's going to be a big 3-game stretch right there where they're going to be greatly tested. Can they perform in section, but also on the road?
I also want to give a shout out to their very veteran head coach, good guy, Rick Klimchuk, who's also helping out his son at Pitt Greensburg with the men's team, but has still done a great job guiding this girls program. Again, 8-1 start for Greensburg Salem girls. They are our team of the week. It's now time for our trivia question. And before we get to this week's trivia question, Jack, let's take a look back at last week. As a reminder, in case you forgot or if you didn't tune in, and shame on you if that's the case, last week's question: aside from Monessen, which has won 3 titles during this span, what is the last Westmoreland County boys basketball team to capture a WPIAL title? And again, we implored everyone to submit their answers. To do so, you can tweet at Westmoreland SN, use the hashtag on the hardwood. We actually posted the video of the question, and we had 2 people respond. Both were correct. The answer is the Jeannette Jayhawks 2008. You might have heard of one of their star players. It was Terrell Pryor on that team. So that is the last Westmoreland boys team outside of Monessen to win a WPIAL title. It has been 14 years, going on 15 years now at this point, since a team has captured gold on the boys' side. The 2 people who got it correct, Zach Mills, who is at Jonath White, and then Brad at Warrior Nation 35. So congrats to them. They both knew it was the Jeannette Jayhawks. Now that turns to this week's question. Now, we're not going to give you the answer because we're going to ask you to guess. So, Jack, even though I'm sure you know this, I'm going to ask that you, do not submit your answer on the air. As of today, January 1st, which Westmoreland County boys basketball team is averaging the most points per game? This is out of all the 18 Westmoreland County boys teams, which one has the highest offensive output per game? Best scoring average. I don't want to give any clues really, but I was a little surprised to see that this team was leading the way. So again, you can tweet your guess at Westmoreland SN, use the hashtag on the hardwood. And what we'll do next week is give you the answer, shout out anyone who gets it correct. So certainly want to hear some guesses this week. Last segment, Jack, our look ahead. And I said it's going to be a busy week. WSN is going to have plenty of coverage, but there's some other good games even outside of what our broadcast schedule will provide. Let's start with the boys. And Tuesday night, we're going to have Burrow at Derry area, the Buccaneers, against the Trojans. And I've been pretty impressed by Derry area, a team that's put up some good numbers. Gabe Carbonero has been a key contributor. They returned like 6 guys from a year ago where they struggled, but they certainly look to be much improved. So that'll be a good game. As will Greater Latrobe at Kiski area. And then listen to this one. We talked a little bit about Bell Vernon and the boys team showing some signs of offensive firepower. They will be at Southmoreland. If I'm correct, that is the second time in a week that those teams will match up. This one will be a Section 1. The prior one was part of a holiday tournament, so I believe it was not a section game. So it's kind of confusing, but this will be the second of what's going to be 3 meetings between the Leopards and the Scotties. That has to be a little bit of a unique wrinkle.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think you even sprinkle on top that, Zion Moore just had 31 points against Southmoreland, and they're going to have to go up against him again, like you said, this week. So you look at it for the Scotties and it's like, hey, we know where we went wrong. We know what we need to do. But for Bell Vernon, it's like, hey, we know what worked. We got to give more the ball more, no pun intended. And obviously we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's I know those holiday tournaments or even those tip-off tournaments, they try to avoid having section teams match up, but I guess sometimes it's unavoidable. So yeah, second time run it back in a week between Bell Vernon and Southmoreland. This time it really will count towards the section records. And then on Friday, this is always a good one. We'll have the broadcast of this as well on Westmoreland Sports. Jeannette, GCC, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, pick a sport, put the Jayhawks and Centurions. It's always going to be special. And I think right now you could argue maybe Jeannette will be the favorite heading into that contest.
I think so right now, but I think you look at how this GCC team has handled, different types of challenges so far this year, and they've been able to step up to those challenges. They've been able to step up to the plate. I think for me, what I will be paying very close attention to is what type of defense is Jeannette going to come out to? How much zone are we going to see? How much 2-3? How much 3-2? I think that we'll see more of a 3-2 zone from Jeannette, possibly try to take away some of those driving angles, really, really take away any sort of opportunity at a 3-point shot and really force GCC into having to find some other answer offensively.
Other games on Friday on the boys' side, Kiski area at Franklin Regional, Corey Smith's crew visiting Murraysville to go against Jesse Reed's squad, and then Ligonier Valley at Valley as well. So a lot of good Westmoreland County matchups this upcoming week in section play. Let's look on the girls' side. We're going to have a number of broadcasts here as well, beginning on Monday, Thomas Jefferson at Penn Trafford. Also on Monday, Greensburg Salem at Valley and Burrell at Mount Pleasant. I know you're familiar with that Penn Trafford team. They were another contender for our team of the week. They've been riding high as well. They'll go against the Jaguars on Monday, Jack.
Yeah, I think this could be a really, really good matchup and obviously a great early section play kind of test, if you will, for PT to see where they're at right now. Again, they've been great in non-section play. I know that they suffered a loss to a obviously very good Norwin girls basketball team, but the way that Olivia Pepple's been playing this season, the way that this entire Penn Trafford team, I think, just works as a program with how well John Janikis has been able to kind of, very, very craftily put together a fantastic team. I think that this is going to be a great game. And then I'm also paying very close attention, Sean, on Thursday, North Allegheny, Norwin, girls basketball. Tuesday. Good catch there, because that is a great game that I'm going to be paying very close attention to, because I think that could be, the two teams that are vying for top position in 6A this year.
Yeah, we'll have that broadcast on Tuesday. And I don't think any team plays North Allegheny better than Norwin has over the past decade or so. Remember, the Knights defeated them in the WPIAL championship many moons ago in a overtime thriller. But even since then, it seems like almost every single year, if a team's going to knock off North Allegheny in section, typically it has been Norwin. So that will be a good test. That's at Norwin. So if you're the Knights, that's the one you got to have because you're playing at home. So we'll have Penn Trafford's game on Monday. We'll have Norwin's game on Tuesday. We're going to have a couple of games on Thursday. We're not exactly sure. We believe it'll be Kiski area at Franklin Regional for one of them, and then maybe North Catholic at Greensburg Salem, perhaps Sarah Catholic at Greensburg Central Catholic. Also, another Westmoreland County matchup. This one's lost a little luster because the Scotties have struggled. Southmoreland at Bell Vernon area. So again, it is still very early in a section slate for some teams, their first section games, but you turn the calendar to January 1st, and anything after usually is very meaningful towards your season's outlook.
Without a question, Sean, I have to ask, with it being the new year, what are your resolutions?
To be a better sports broadcaster, Jack. How about that?
What's
a good yours?
Same. I was actually right in the same line as you, my friend. You're just
stealing my great answer that I put so much time into.
I would never try. Hey, listen, I was not that great at reading the passing lanes. I wouldn't steal that from you. No pun intended. Get it? Well,
some would say that you can't get any better than what Jack Ridenour has been. So, I mean, it's a tough goal to achieve, certainly. Final thing I wanted to touch on, we will have some college hoops as well on WSN this upcoming week. Saturday, doubleheader. It'll be Clarion at Seton Hill. It will be the women. It will be the men right after. So we'll have coverage of all of that. So if you do the math, Just about every single day this upcoming week, we're going to have basketball. I think the one day that we don't, we'll have wrestling instead. So you certainly want to stick around to westmorelandsports.com, not only for the live broadcast, but for all the articles as well. We have a notebook. We have a alum Q&A. We have our Recruiting Thursday. We have recaps of many of the games on some of the busier nights. So we got a lot of good stuff to get to this week and beyond. That'll do it for our second installment of the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast. Want to give a happy holidays wishes to everybody out there. And again, gear up, because January and February, we are going to be bringing you action just about every single day and night here on WSN. But for now, we'll call it quits on this one. For my colleague, Jack Ridenour, Sean Meyers signing off. We'll catch you again right here next week for the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
This is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network.